Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah, I'm here for Knitting Now to help you knit with ease, confidence and joy. I thought I'd sit in a slightly different position today. Why not? You can see all the colourful yarns behind me. So let's take a look today at knitting with decent light in the middle of winter. It might not be easy, especially as we're knitting more. It can be really important to get that mix right. Let's dig into this a little bit further. There's so many little nuances about it. I'd really like to look at it because it really does sit with the rhythm of the year, doesn't it? It's like, okay, autumn, getting darker, slower, shorter days. All of those things really lend the fact to we are actually trying to say to our bodies, can we have a bit of a rest? But we still need light to be able to see. 200 years ago, they would have had a candle. But today we have so many different options. What I would like to say today is let's not blast ourselves with all of the light from what you might be sitting watching on your phone, and when we're knitting, not having bright lights all over us. Let's make it seasonal and let's make it useful for our knitting so that we can rest, we can see what we're doing, and we can actually move through a knitting project without any problems. How does that feel? Good? Yeah? I'm looking forward to this. So one of the first things we need to realise is that during the day, as I've already mentioned, with the evenings the days kind of collapsing, so we have natural light for much less time through the 24 hours. We're going to have to very likely change the different things that we're doing with our light through the different parts of the day. I think that's very noticeable, and so much more than what we've been used to in the last, say, 6 months. So in May, June, we were going, hey, I can knit all day and it doesn't matter because the light was there and you didn't really need to do anything. Get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and start knitting before breakfast. Go to bed and sit in bed and knit. Yeah, you might have had a light on by the bed while you were looking at what you're doing, but there may even have still been light coming in through the window, and it wasn't an absolute necessity. So really remember that this is a different time of year. You need to take a lot more care and actually put the effort in to getting it right. So the winter, as I've mentioned, is shortening the days, but it means that different points in the day we need different solutions. So really think about that and what part of the house you can knit, what different ideas you have for using light in a different way throughout the day and in different spaces that you have that you might be knitting in. It's going to be really good for us to take note and really be thankful, make use of the natural light that you do have. I have this big window right next to me. You can see the curtains here, but if I remember buying the curtains, it's about 8 foot from side to side. It's more than that, it might even be 10, because it's a round window as well, so we get light in from different angles. So the fact that it's coming in from different angles, we get it at different points of the day, different times. We've even got a street light out there, which can be very annoying in the middle of the night, in the middle of the evening. So curtains closed by then, way too bright. Thankfully there's a tree in the way, but it is diffused slightly. But this natural light is ideal for sitting here, which is where I film overhead tutorials. Perfect. Natural light all through the summer, and I try and utilise the better light during the day in the winter. Today is slightly better. The cloud isn't too thick, so we actually have decent white light, but I also have a studio light on over there. It's shining into the wall rather than right in my face, unlike a couple of weeks ago where you could see it reflected in my glasses. Big mistake. And it was kind of blinding as well. So really think about that. Where can you sit, comfortable chair, enjoy knitting, by a window and you can really get the natural light? Do you even have a conservatory or some kind of area in the house where there are more windows, where you are getting natural light? And could you move from the east to the west of your house? I really love this is west, okay? So it's diffused light during the morning and it's way in my face in the afternoon. I tend to do my filming in the morning. But at the east of my house in that direction is my bedroom. And I would actually like sitting there. We haven't got a massive bedroom. I sit on the bed. I like sitting in there in the morning and getting things done. It's quite a nice space. And I will sit in the living room, which is dressed in that direction as well, with the diffused light on me as well, if I'm not trying to focus on my knitting. This time of year, then I would need to sit closer to the window. Where can you sit where you can really appreciate the natural light? It's good for you as well. You can see the nature. You know, if you have buses going past like I do occasionally, then yeah, okay. But nevertheless, there are still birds circling overhead, and there are people walking by with dogs. So you can see nature. I mean, humans are nature as well. So I see people going for walks and such like. So on a relatively quiet road, I like it. What side of the house would be better for you to sit, and what time of day? And is there a window that's large enough for you to sit in? Are you even willing to put your big coat on, shove on a hat, and go and knit in the garden? I love doing that kind of thing any time of year, just for a bit of fun in the winter, because yeah, it might be too cold. But on a milder day, it is an option. Do you have a bench set up right next to the wall of the house so it's a bit sheltered? Go and sit out there if you want to. All of these things are options. What would work for you? But taking real opportunity when there is natural light can be a real benefit to you as a body. Your eyes will thank you for it. I mean, it doesn't restrict it a great deal. It will be restricted to a point. Vitamin D can come in and get into your body at this time of year as well through the window. I don't know about you, but for other reasons as well, I take vitamin D supplements all the way through the year, so I'm all sorted. But I'm certainly not a doctor telling you to do this, but it can help. But we need the natural light. We need to be able to see what we're knitting. Let's sit by a window if we can. Now, the other time when I'm knitting, like I've said, I have the living room over there. Sitting on the sofa, I'm further away from the window. I have a standard light behind me. It has a really nice larger cover over the light bulb, so it's diffused. It's a bright white light because it's an LED, but it is just slightly warmer. So I've got that light on me. I know that I'm organised. I know that I'm set up, and I can see what I'm doing. I will move it closer or further away depending on what time of day it is. If it's in the evening and I really need to see what I'm doing, if I'm using smaller stitches or fuzzy yarn or something like that, I will make sure that standard light is behind me rather than a few feet away. Really consider that too. You're allowed to move lights that are in your house, and it can be really helpful to consider that just as something that becomes a habit. I've done that and it's become a habit over the years. If I know I can't see very well, if Nick is sitting next to me on the sofa and just slightly blocking that light, I will say to him, can you move the light so it's further behind us? Then I can see what I'm doing. He will even prompt me sometimes because he knows me so well. He says, can you actually see what you're doing? I'll move the light closer. So get everyone else on board as well. They need it for whatever they're doing too. If they're playing with Lego and they're just shading themselves and they can't see what they're doing, make sure they got the light so they can see what they need just as much as you can see what you need. So really consider what diffuse light, what warm light, what comforting light you have that you can move around in the house. Now, when I'm knitting in bed in the evening, I love doing that. It's just something that's become a routine. Before, I've told you about my health conditions before, And it's just one of those things. I find it a lot easier to go to bed earlier and to sit in bed for a couple of hours, maybe 3 sometimes, before bed. And it will be early evening that we'll go in there instead of sitting on the sofa for longer. It's just one of those things, but I will sit there and knit. And if it's a chunky yarn and I don't desperately need to see what I'm doing, I will have the light on Nick's side of the bed and that's switched on, and I can see with that light. If it's something that needs a lot more attention, then I will have my light on as well as his. So both sides of the bed we have table lights. They're there and they are diffused. They are, again, LEDs with a white light, but a little bit warmer. They're not really bright. They are the equivalent of 40 or 60 watts, I think. So they're quite happy there. I will have both of them on if I really need to see what I'm doing, and then I will recognise that if that's the case, I will switch off from my knitting earlier because those lights are not helping me sleep. With both of them on all the way through to bedtime, nah, I have to switch mine off because it's closer to me, closer to bedtime. So be aware of that. The circadian rhythm can completely throw its arms up and say, what on earth are you doing? If you are blasting yourself with light that close to bed, it's really helpful in the morning when you're waking up. But yeah, try not to cause confusion within the body by having too much white, bright light on you while you're knitting. This is something that might help, and it's just something to consider. You know the times of day when it might feel darker when you're knitting. Depending on where you're sitting, if the natural light isn't there by the window, all of those things, just be aware of it. Would the colour that you're knitting with help? If you are someone who knits with blacks and greys, would a lighter grey or a white just help at a different time of day? If you're someone that knits with blues, yellows, greens, then have your darker ones for the daytime when you can see more, and pick the brighter colours to knit with later in the evening. Just an option. Think about it. If you've got 2 or 3 projects going on, pick the one that actually makes sense for the right time of day. This could actually become something that becomes instinctive if you want to go that way. You can really think about how you're knitting, what you're knitting, that works with the time of day, with the light that you have as an option. During the summer, it will probably really not be relevant unless you're knitting very late into the evening. But consider it as we move into winter, and it can become something that you kind of recognise and just bring into your day occasionally as we go through the next few months. So consider that as something that actually could be really, really helpful. I've talked about this before. Should we take some rests to just give your mind, not just your brain, but your eyes a rest as well? There is your knitting for yoga class over on my channel. It's so old. I can't believe how old it is. I don't actually have a knitting needle right next to me. That's unusual, but I do have some pencils. So it can be as simple as looking at the pencil and seeing how far you can see it to your right. Just moving it around you. Where does your peripheral vision let it see? How far can you see it? And warming your hands up and putting them over your eyes. Obviously not take your glasses off, but that sort of thing. And it will be a massive help if you just go and have a cup of tea. Go and put the kettle on. Go and get yourself a drink of some kind or other if you don't like hot drinks. And just go and have a conversation with someone in the other part of the house. Don't switch your screen on because that's going to hurt your eyes as well. But resting those eyes in between knitting sessions can be really helpful. Be very aware of that if you feel your eyes starting to strain. I have become very ready and able to notice that in myself. Cool, this is difficult. Oh, I'm straining my eyes. Okay, I'll stop that for today. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm probably a bit tired. I'll just put it down. That's enough. So recognise that too. Any time during the day, take a break. Not just for your hands and your fingers and your wrists, but for your eyes too. And being aware of it, putting that into the routine of knitting can be so helpful. It will help you for a lifetime. And that is going to be a useful thing any time of year. But especially at winter, if we are knitting in the dark, are your eyes straining because the light's not on? If so, get up, let your eyes rest, put the light on before you come down and start knitting again. Or if your eyes straining and you've got the light on and everything's okay with the light and you can see what you're doing, it's because you've been knitting for too long. So, yeah, be aware of that too. Now, I probably will talk about this in another video, but I've had a really interesting time recently. I picked up a project. I just fancy doing it. One of my fingerless mitts patterns is not actually in the shop. I had no idea. I didn't realise this. I thought all of them were. But as one that isn't, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. It's the last DK. There are other fingerless mitts patterns that I want to revamp as well. But this one is the last double knitting fingerless mitts pattern. And I wanted to re-knit it. I want to say, okay, this pattern needs to go in the shop. Let's do this. So I picked up a DK yarn, but I also picked up a kid silk as well. This. And this is one of the ones that I got from Look at S Yarns. So it's so thin, you can barely see it, but knitting it together with another yarn, I had to slow down. I had no choice because all of those stitches were, have I got both yarns? Am I going through both yarns? And I only realised I needed to take that little bit extra time when I was doing the original ribbing, at the beginning of the mitt. It didn't take me long to realise, oh, hang on a second, I missed it there. Maybe 10, 15 stitches later. Oh, I missed it there as well. I need to slow down. I need to really be aware of every single stitch that I make and see how it goes. So I've been making one up with 2 greys, and I want to see how it goes with this yellow and cloudy white as well. I think it would be quite nice to put those together. And that will be actually quite a good knit for knitting at this time of year because it's very bright and it's happy. And with the white fluffiness, it feels snowy and wintry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to knitting that. But 2 yarns at once, you need to be very aware of how it's going. Are you picking up both stitches at once? And is the light good enough to actually do that? So that was one of the projects where I thought, light, slowing down. All of those things kind of came together. Focusing on each stitch, whether you're knitting with 2 yarns at once or not, can actually be really helpful in the darker days and with questionable light at this time of year. So as we're knitting during winter, it really does bring a bit of light, a bit of fun and a bit of joy into those days when it does feel darker and we are slowing down. So continue knitting. Just do it in a way that feels much better because you can see what you're doing, you're not straining, and you're probably not making as many mistakes. If you can see what you're doing, you're less likely to make mistakes. Simple, yeah? Do let me know in the comments how you make your light better for this time of year. I know lots of you wear the collar lights, like reading lights for knitting. For me, I don't think it would work because I can get migraines if the light is just too close to my face. So I don't think I would be able to use that. But I know a lot of you do use that. What other things do you use? Candles. Obviously, there's the option at this time of year of a beautiful log fire. All of these things can be helpful. Let us know, how are you setting up your light for winter knitting and for knitting that needs different solutions at different times of day. Do you have a big window like I do? Or do you struggle with that maybe? All of these things can be really helpful, and I bet someone down below in the comments will say, hey, that's a good idea for me, if you give some ideas there as well. So I'd love to hear all about that. Are you knitting with dark colours or light colours, or do you want to change? Hey, you never know. Has this video actually inspired you to perhaps change it up a bit, do something different? I'd love to know. And if you want to continue with this kind of winter knitting and these kind of tips, then there are 10 to 15 minute videos and 10 to 15 minute audios every day in the winter knitting retreat. It's this kind of talk. It's just, this is the kind of thing I will talk about in the nesting week, in the first week. And then we get to nourish and restore ourselves as the weeks go by. There are 3 weeks in the winter knitting retreat, and I tell you what, it can be really helpful to do this kind of thing before Christmas and following Christmas, just to recognise those darker days with the solstice on the 21st of December, and then you're ready to really feel the winter as you move into January. Do it at any time of year. It can be helpful just to recognise where you are, and it can actually at any time of year. This is something that I showed you a couple of weeks ago in the wintering book. What phase of life are you in? Where are you in your life in this year? What is happening in your life that is telling you to slow down, rest, retreat, and just take some time to yourself? Because the winter knitting retreat can be really helpful for that too. If you feel, I just need a break, I just need to really sink into my knitting and let it help me, let it support me, let it be my foundation, that's really going to be something that the winter knitting retreat can help you with. So consider that too. Whether you're watching this in February and thinking, I can't do it because it's not winter anymore, I've only got a few weeks left, consider it if you need it at any time of year too. And I will encourage anyone who already has it or who is jumping in now to recognise that if, for example, they get some kind of, who knows, goodness knows, like a flu or something, and it takes them a few weeks to recover. Once the worst of it's gone, the winter retreat can actually just help you move back into the, okay, knitting is my foundation again, I'm ready to get going, let me just set it up slowly and move into it again and move into life again with knowing that that is my foundation. Thank you so much for being here today. Like I said, do let me know in the comments. Really love to know all of your light tips for your knitting, and what colours are you knitting with? Anything inspires you perhaps to shift it up for different times of day? Really love to know. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here with Knitting Natter to help you knit with ease, confidence and joy all the way through winter. Fingers crossed. Thanks for being here. Bye for now. Happy knitting.